right, excellent afternoon to all those watching us across the states in Nigeria. Say welcome, welcome, welcome. And of course, the times are definitely challenging and the hardship is at peak. We can feel the agitation and the yearning of Nigerians and of course their clamor. One thing is certain, that this too shall pass, because that is the word that I believe that Nigerians actually is like our slogan. But before I begin the live show today, I want to urge Nigerians to be patient, to be peaceful, to embrace civility, because I feel that that's one of the things that we can use to avoid destruction and burning of properties and of course loss of lives that is being shown or that is going on across the states in Nigeria right now. So as Nigerians, I believe strongly that we definitely will win after February 25th. Yes, I have hope and my hope is intact. Again, I say welcome to another interesting episode of Real Talk with Kike. I remain your convener, Kike Atanda-Owo. Yes. And going straight to on this day in history segment, I can hear Nigerians' voice around the corner, but guys, let's get to hear one of the historical events in Nigeria, Nigerians' history. Stay with me. I will return after a moment.
1999, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, led by Olusegun Obasanjo, won the majority of seats in the Nigerian House of Representatives during the national elections held on that date. The PDP won 169 out of 360 seats, gaining a clear majority and allowing them to form a government. This was the first time in Nigeria's history that an elected government completed a full 4-year term and transferred power to another elected government through the ballot box. This event was considered as a turning point in Nigeria's democratic development, as it marked the end of a long period of military rule and the beginning of civil rule. Olusegun Obasanjo, who was the presidential candidate of the PDP, was also elected as the president of Nigeria in the same election, defeating his main opponent Olufale of the Alliance for Democracy, AD.
Right, on this day in history segment refers us back to 24 years ago to be precise, and the will of the people actually prevailed, and we had Olusegun Obasanjo step into leadership at the time. Arguably, it has been one of the best 8 years of democracy in this country. Yes, I'm saying so because I remembered vividly that it wasn't this bad as we have it today currently, and I'm praying and hoping again that we can have such a, good transition in May that will usher Nigerians into progress and peace. Yes, we need that peace of good transitioning right now. I think it's important for us to quickly go on a quick break to get a message from our sponsors. Stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with us. The affairs in the country cast tension, of course, uncertainty in the minds of Nigerians as regards to the general election coming up in few days, or should I say in 4 days' time, 4 days' time to be precise. But many questions are unsettling in the minds of Nigerians about the general election. And my discussion today on Real Talk, knowing that I keep it real on this platform, is to center all events across the country on with the countdown or in the countdown to the elections. Also, the actions of all our players, including the government and of course the people, the political elite class, and the security agencies. And of course, INEC is going to be touchlighted today with all discussion touching on all of these sectors that I've actually spoken about. And my guest today is a political player and of course a legal practitioner based on the resume that I saw. And before I dive further with my guest, I think it's important for us to have a quick look at his profile. Stay with us. I'll be back in a moment. right, welcome to the show, Mr. Daniel Bwala. It's a pleasure to have you connect with us via our Abuja studio. How are you doing today, sir? Let me start from there.
I'm doing great. Thank you. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers as well.
All right, excellent afternoon to you. Let's just dive straight to the topic at hand, because at this time on the 21st of February, 4 days to the general presidential elections, what should be the priority of the government at the moment? You know, a credible election or a sustainable economy without, you know, the crisis of the Naira exchange? I just want to quickly go straight to the Naira exchange challenges I feel that has affected many sectors today.
Right. So the government will continue the affairs of governance. So whether it is with the Naira policy or with any other policy, in fact, of the government. But at this time, it is election that is at the corner. And Nigerians will get the opportunity to decide on the future of the country. So whether they are comfortable with the last 8 years, and then they will decide to continue the next 4 years of the last 8 years, or that they are not comfortable with this path, and then they will make a decision on the basis of the alternatives that we have. Atiku is there, he canvassed his point. Peter Obi is there, Kwankwaso, and the rest, a host of others. With respect to the policy is a decoy. Actually, what happened is that APC, realizing that in the past 8 years, they have not been able to fulfill on the promise they made to the Nigerian people along the 3 standards they raised for themselves: the economy, anti-corruption, and security. So having seen that they have failed, now they are faced up with election. They thought about the best approach to give to reinvent themselves. So what they did was they applied one of the laws of power, which is to say that when you realize that your image is bashed and that you are not a hot cake anymore, you create a problem and proffer solution so you can be useful going forward. You create a problem, proffer solution so you can be useful. So that's why they came up with this problematic Naira policy, which has plunged the nation into economic wars, where people is not about not having purchasing power, but they cannot even access their own money. So even if it's a small money you have in the banking system, retrieving is a problem. The ones you have outside, you have to, take it back. There are many people who will tell you the policy is good but wrong timing. But for us, it is not new with the APC. In the last 8 years, this has been consistent with their policy objective. It has always been anti-people. It had also always been the one that take people aback and keep them, poor and impoverished. So they created a problem, so that whatever they come up with as a solution, they will become useful to the people. That's why you will see them all over Nigeria, like in Ogun State. They went about giving people 4,000 and telling them, if you vote us, we're going to reverse this policy and do this. If you go to Kaduna, you will see them saying, we care for you. We are reversing the policy if you vote us. If you go to Maiduguri, you will see them saying, we'll provide food for you and palliatives because we care. So all of these things they are doing, they are trying to say this is the solution we'll have. The Nigerian people are wise and smarter because, for example, if you come to Borno State, it is the same state that has been collecting tax not only from the Kike Nape people, but lately even from Akara sellers and people who have very low income. You collect tax and there is no evidence of what the tax is being used for. If you go to Lagos, you will see that they collect tax from Okada riders. They collect from, in fact, even when there was Sars and the candidate of APC was confronted as to why he could not intervene, his response at the time was, what took you there in the first place? If you go to Kaduna, it was the same chief executive officer who cares and tries to even threaten the sovereignty of the country. But it is the same state. It demolished houses belonging to people, hard-earned houses. Some of the houses were built for over 30, 40 years and inheritance to the children. He sacked teachers. And from the northern Nigeria, you find that a family will have 2 wives and probably 4 to 16 children. So when you sack a man like that, you are looking at the generation of people you plunge into poverty. They never bothered. That Kaduna was surrounded by insurgents at some point. Even the governor said they were going to overrun Kaduna. He never bothered. He didn't address the war. He didn't confront the president. So the Nigerian people are smarter and they know that this one is a gimmick. You created a problem and attempt to provide solutions so we can see you as useful. But it isn't selling because the Nigerian people are resolute that they are going to vote out APC. Among the other candidates, who is a better candidate is the question. And the answer is obvious. It is Atiku Abubakar. Whether you look at experience, whether you look at the reach, whether you look at capacity, whether you look at character and composure, which probably in the course of the conversation we'll look at that. So he prefers the better alternative and option for the direction that the Nigeria is taking.
All right, I hear you. Many thanks for your submission, and I know that, of course, you are going to be campaigning for your own principle. But you've touched on, Ogun State, Kaduna State, and I know that many fingers are pointing at the governors and their interest in the old Naira exchange policy. But Nigerians are saying that they are only protecting their own interests, while some say that they want to have access to currency to spend for election. There are quite a number of different reactions or controversies around this, but I'd like you to expatiate further there. What do you think in this case, with the fact that you've mentioned two states, Ogun State and Kaduna? And I remember vividly that I'm not sure if I don't know which blog I saw is that where Ogun State governor was actually putting clarity to the allegations that he was sharing money to different people, that he just went to the bank, he had few cash on him, and he decided to actually share with a lot of people. It's not about vote buying and all of that. But let me put that aside, because I'm not here to advocate for any of the parties. But we have also seen that Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai as well, defining the flaunting of the order of the presidency on live television on Naira policy. Some say it's backed by his party and party presidential candidate Tinubu. What are your thoughts thus far with all that we are all seeing on socials on his anti-CBN position in Kaduna State?
Yeah, it is actually APC as a party, they continue to suffer from different rare conditions, when you are facing defeat. They started with pantophobia, then they went to anthrophobia, and now they are in agoraphobia. Agoraphobia is a fear that you may not be able to escape the danger that is looming. And so they begin to act like people who are gasping for bread or seeking for the redemption of their lives from what would have been or what would be the voters' backlash. For example, if you look at Ogun State, this is the same governor that in Ogun State, he could not perform. You hear the people in Ogun raising a lot of complaints. But that Ogun State governor, who could not provide loans for agricultural farmers in Ogun, said who could not provide money to small and medium scale enterprise, who could not build infrastructure that was needed, went to the bank and threatened that he was going to seize the license of the bank and shut them down. And what was he fighting about? Which applies to all the other governors. They are fighting about currency. Currency in the Constitution falls under exclusive list. In other words, the currency is matters that are determined by the National Assembly for which the president enforces. Currency has nothing to do with the states. The same thing with Kaduna. This Kaduna was the same person who has never had any time to fight for the masses. In fact, when it was reported that he threw out 3,600 workers in the state, you would have thought, how are workers retrenched or sacked in other climes? What they do is they have progressive plan. If you're inadequate or you get disqualified because you represent a family, there are methods. They never showed those cares or empathy or anything, but suddenly they say, that speech by Governor El-Rufai, let me tell you quite frankly, were it not for the fact that the president may be looking at elections very close, that kind of speech, when you do, even if it climbs like America, the next day you will see the fates in your city. The fates are the federal government. They have to show you the force of the republic. And there was insurrection one time in America. The fates had to come down because we run a federation where the president is not just the president. You will see him addressed as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. The armed forces are the true reflection of the territorial integrity of the country. And so anytime the territory is under threat, the armed forces are deployed to keep the territorial integrity of the state. So ordinarily, even the immunity that he enjoys, if it were in climes where they have to set a precedent so that no state will come up with that act of rebellion and insurrection, what they will do is from the minute he made that declaration, the federal government will retrieve all the security forces from him, and it will be naked and vulnerable. Why? Because the police, the DSS, and all the security forces are under the exclusive list and under the command of the federal government. So, but nothing like that is done. He is allowed to pride, and he has doubled down on it. And in all the states of the federation, they kept threatening on an item that is under exclusive, and on an item that they've already taken the government to court. Usually, when you take someone to court, you now leave the matters before the jurisdiction of the court until it is decided, meaning that as long as it is in court, even if the president violates, your recourse to law is to go to the court and say, the president has violated the order, and you seek for judicial means of punishing that act of the president. But they actually wanted to set the country into chaos, because when they see that unless they are permitted to buy vote, they won't win election, and they felt if we can't win election, then there will be no Nigeria. And that's the conduct that you find. Were it not for the deployment of army, by now Nigeria would have been in cataclysmic situation.
Many thanks again for that insight. And knowing that you are a barrister, and of course you were formerly the special advisor to Deputy Senate President on legal and constitutional matters at National Assembly, I cannot help but ask you, how do you think that the Senate is going about all that is happening right now, knowing that they initially sought the CBN, to extend the deadline? What advice, or what's your take on this thus far? Would you be giving in such circumstances, given your previous office as a special advisor? I'm just curious to know what your own views are.
Right. So when I was a special advisor to the Deputy Senate President, he deployed my professionalism for the work, means it was devoid of political party affiliations and exegesis. And I was not only a special advisor, but I was a consultant to the Constitution Review, where we sat for many months, to review on the Constitution based on the memoranda that was submitted to the committee by the Senate, having reviewed it from the Nigerian people. So we were happy and we did our best. Now, but in terms of what is the conduct of the Senate regarding many issues in Nigeria and whether they are right or wrong, the problem with legislative branch of government is that once you come to the eve of election, there is nothing serious that will happen there, because then they begin to activate election mode. And that election mode pushes an average lawmaker to the wall, where you now have to fight for survival. So you hardly find anything reasonable on the eve of election, not to talk of in the year of election. And that's why in the last few weeks, they were misbehaving, in my view, when they sat and they were trying to threaten, they will summon this, they will arrest him, House of Reps say they will arrest. And if you look at the lawmakers doing that, both at the Senate and the House of Rep level, they are APC lawmakers. So they tried everything conceivable, right? Through the executive, they put all the pressure in the world to have the chairman of INEC removed, because he refused to concede to the pressure they were giving him that he should make a statement or issue a directive that this election cannot be conducted with the use of beavers. And he insisted, so they wanted to remove him. Secondly, they turned their attention to Central Bank governor when the policy was introduced. And they did everything under the heavens to remove him. It failed. Then they switched over to the Attorney General. That's the pressure Attorney General they are trying to put him. In fact, lately, they even switched their attention to EFCC. You see, so what is actually agitating the mind of an average Nigerian is that if these individuals, for the ambition of one man, can go this far, what when he becomes the president? We're not going to have a republic. These are the dangerous precedents that the Nigerian voters are taking to the poll. One man, for his ambition, that the governor in the north will throw the entire northern Nigeria under the bush. When he said that he does not listen to any elder in the north, he is an elder, and he must deliver the man. So people began to ask, what is it about the man? Are there promises that the candidate made to that governor? Because we have heard also report that the presidential candidate of the party promised that governor that if he could deliver the vote of the north by whatever means necessary, that he was going to replace his current vice presidential candidate with that governor, and that's why the governor is doing what he's doing. We read that, we don't know how true that is, right? But what we are saying, the question that is agitating the minds of people is, what is your motivation? It has never happened in Nigeria. Even when Obasanjo wanted a third term, there were a sizable number of Nigerians across all platforms that resisted that. What is it about the ambition of this man that the entire political party across the three spaces, both in the executive branch, because you see ministers undermining the president, at the legislative level, you see it, and at the party level, the party now say they've taken the position, they are also against the president. Meanwhile, these sets of people were the people that brought the government to power. These were the sets of people, you remember, when National Assembly passed a vote of confidence on the president, when there was agitation with the Sars that the government is no longer run in accordance with the law. The same people, they are now fighting him, and they're saying they are masses. So virtually everyone, even one of their spokesmen who is the minister, he went on one of television houses and he said that what happened was treasonable. No, not treasonable. He said it was contempt of court. it is against his belief. He subscribes to the code of ethics of the legal profession. And the man is still there. He's still eating from that place. He's supposed to resign in certain crimes because the duty of professional conduct, according to Rule 1 of the Rules of Professional Conduct, it says a legal practitioner will observe and uphold the rule of law, promote the cause of justice, and not be engaged in any conduct that is unbecoming of a legal practitioner. Meaning that if I'm a cabinet member in that government, and the government takes a position against the promotion of the rule of law, that I will come to the chamber in the Executive Council meeting and I will address, I say, Your Excellency, I am resigning because this is against my conviction. That's how honorable men do. But a man eating from there, and look at all of them, look at the pattern. They saw that this president is going, so it's more or less like a lame dog, and in an attempt to please the candidate of their party that they fought him before the primaries, because they felt like they needed to do more to repose confidence. So they now have gone on all fours attacking the president. That's how inconsistently consistent people and consistently inconsistent people are.
All right, listening to you, I can't help but still talk on this agitation of the people, and I really need to put these questions out there before we go on a quick break, because I know 4 days left to the election and we have an untamed populace in agitation. And my concern is this: how is it that how can we have an also free election, that seems like a challenge right now with all that is going on with the circumstances at hand? And the second question is that when the streets begin to boil, it becomes difficult and people get apprehensive and scared for their lives to step out and vote. Do you think, or do we have the security structure or architecture rather to certain issues that we have at hand now towards this coming election, knowing that I read, I saw on the news this morning that, the AIG was saying that the police are the one in charge and all challenges of this election when it comes to security is being handled. What's your take thus far before we go on a quick break?
Well, this election is peculiar. It's been long when we had election in that regard, where the people running for it has turned like ethnic based. The 3 major candidates running for the post come from 3 ethnic zones.
Yeah.
And at a time when we have this charged atmosphere because APC has not managed our diversity. So you're right that it has raised tension and apprehension. Ordinarily, the government will tone down the rhetoric and tone down the heat and then get the law enforcement. Now we have limited number of police, limited number of soldiers, because while you conduct election, you must also have law enforcement in streets outside of the polling unit. Do we have enough of them? It remains to be seen. But in terms of violence, if the president or the government is determined, it will be violence-free, because usually more of the violence occur in an election where there is the transmission of the result manually from the polling unit to ward, because that's when they do the start snatching of the ballot box shooting and the rest. But now, if the law enforcement are not compromised in a polling unit, the process of accreditation, the process of voting, and the upload of the result to the INEC IRF server will be seamless. It will just be like census, or it will be like where you go to do your biometrics. So, but the question is, are the law enforcement going to be non-partisan? Because in all civilized economies, where there is a question of doubt as to the possibility of law enforcement being used, what they do is, before the week of election, they will transfer and redeploy personnel. So the IG of police, for example, will redeploy all the commissioners of police and pick them. The Director General of DSS will redeploy all the directors of Department of State Service across. So also it applies to other military and law enforcement like the NCDC and the rest of them. That has not happened. So all the commissioners of police and the directors of DSS in all the states, you can have the presumption that their allegiance is going to be with the governor. So how will the president get the service chiefs to ensure that these people are non-partisan? It remains to be seen. The good thing is that the international community is on ground to not only observe but to document. Measures are taken in place by the international community to deal with individuals that are going to compromise this election. And there are different stages of dealing. It will start by revocation of visa. So if they are citizens, let's say, of the United States, it's not just visa. If you have a green card, they will revoke the green card. If you have citizenship status, they will revoke the citizenship status. Then they will escalate it after that to seizing of their assets anywhere in the world. So if you are revoked the visa and the extent of crime or compromise of the election is massive, they have the intelligence to know anywhere in the world where you have your asset, whether they are real estate, they are star services assets, whatever it is. And then the third one is the extradition for prosecution. So that's the recourse. But whether domestic law enforcement will manage this election, it is something we can all hope and put their hands together and believe.
On a quick break to get the word from our sponsors. Please stay with us. I'll be right back. All right, glad to know you're still with us. In case you just joined the show, today's conversation is about the coming elections and, of course, the series of events that are, beclouding Nigerians. Yes, beclouding Nigerians, ranging from the controversies to the Naira crisis, and, of course, the stable atmosphere for credible election is quite important right now from all quarters. And as you have heard from our guests, that we have international community who is also on ground right now, who are observing so many things. And of course, I have been speaking with Mr. Daniel Bwala, the spokesperson to Atiku and Okowa's campaign organization. I must say many thanks for all your submission thus far. But quickly, let me open the phone lines. Remember that you can be part of this conversation by calling the studio number 080-988-77400. It's showing on your screen right now. And of course, we are streaming live from Facebook and on YouTube, both on Real Talk with Kike platform and on Silverbird platform. And, with all that you've shared thus far, Mr. Daniel, talking about security for the election, because I feel that is really, really important right now, and there are quite a number of people that are saying because of that they might not be coming out. We have seen in recent times that the police are less effective to calm uprising and protest from the public. Yes, I try to keep it real on this platform, so people tell me, oh, as a police daughter, you're not supposed to be saying certain things. But as a police child, or daughter rather, is the reason why I must actually throw a lot of light and remain transparent as much as I can, because I've seen that there are quite a number of loopholes in that sector, So I'm asking you, in this election scenario, is the invitation of the army, going to bore peace and probably find a balance to the options that we have right now in terms of security? What's your take on this?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, that usually if you are a president and you want to fulfill your word of the legacy you want to leave behind of a free and fair election, what you need to do is to ensure that you go beyond just an immediate conversation with the security chiefs. You have to see to it that there is enforcement of whatever direction or directive you are giving to them right to the command level. So, for example, you raised the question about the police. The Inspector General, I'm not saying that the security chief should be removed, right? It is the president's prerogative. But I'm saying that all the commands and the control they have in the various states, because this is where these elections are going to be collated, right? Most of the security chiefs at this point would be sitting in headquarters and probably be guiding and directing. So those full soldiers are the commissioners of police or the directors of DSS across the country. They have to, the best option would have been to redeploy them. You have to redeploy. It used to happen. That's why the military have had a successful way of governing apart from violation of human rights, because what they do is they run it like a cantonment. You might be posted to Borno State and by the next morning you are taken out. So it does not give you that opportunity to sit down and begin to plan with that governor. And historically, the governors in Nigeria have not been well to our democracy. They contribute to 70% of the problem that we have since the inception of the democracy. They control local government, control states, they control the federal government through the various ways. As a matter of fact, the democracy we run, if not because some presidents are strong, the presidents are puppet and are non-effective, because that minister that is working with you was nominated by the governor. That MDA, DG or whatever that is working with you nominated by the governor. The senator and the House of Rep you are dealing with as the legislators, we are sponsored by the governor. And so also you look at the security forces. They will say, you want to take a commissioner, they nominate. So they are them by the boards.
All right, apologies, I have to interrupt your line of thought. We have Peter from Edo State. Peter, what's your contribution on the topic at hand? Please go straight to the point, please.
Hello.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Hello.
Make your point count, please. Can you go straight to the point? I can hear you. All right, I'm sorry I have to interrupt that. Mr. Daniel, with all that you've been sharing thus far, I think I need to quickly push certain civil conversation aside. Yeah, there are quite a number of people that are telling me, oh, you've been keeping it so calm, maybe because I'm just recuperating, you know, and all of that. But, you know, keeping it real, because you are the spokesman to the PDP presidential team, to Atiku and Okowa, you know, I would like you to defend your party to some extent. You know, some Nigerians that are accusing your team in abetting and with the so-called cabals as the presidency, with the plan of an interim government. There are quite a number of different opinions regarding this. What are your comments on this allegation thus far?
To be honest, even the masses don't buy that. But unfortunately, those who buy the idea are the members of the press. And let me explain what I mean. You know, there are certain story your child comes to tell you, or your younger one comes to tell you. When they finish talking, you look at them with the eye of, are you dumb? Are you stupid? And then they will know that what they just talked about are bad, they will go away. But this APC, they peddle this because they know that if Nigerians are going to say, are you dumb? Are you bad? They are going to reflect that at the poll. How can and how in the world will an opposition party that is struggling to wrest power from them, that for 8 years have been consistently criticizing their policies that aren't working, suddenly will become friends with the executive branch of government to the point where the structures of the party are left behind? You see, that's what I told you about that strategy they adopted: create the problem, provide solution, and look good. What they needed when they started, right? They created a manifesto that substantially is a war against the government, because they agreed with Nigerians that their party and their policies have failed Nigerians. So, but how do you do? The best thing is depart from the government, reinvent yourself, and come like an opposition, you know, freshly. That's why in all of their manifesto, I was the first person to expose them. And they were denying until recently, when they now declare full-fledged fight with the government. How can they say, who are the cabals? They are all over the news. They ask them, state the cabals. They have been strong in saying we want 1,500, but they have not been able to mention any cabal. So they would in fact, they fall short of calling the president, what is this word, a dullard. Because this one will tell you, no, the president is a good man. No, he's being manipulated by somebody behind. No, they have touched his head, his shoulder, his knees, and his toes. They have not been bold enough. Do you know why? Because they don't have the truth. There is nobody in PDP that has any collusion or connection with somebody in APC to say they want to. Interim national government. How can PDP that is winning be having interim national government? It is the APC who feel if they don't win, it must be interim national government.
All right.
And it is this kind of dull, permit me to say this, it is this kind of dull suggestion or opinion that the security committee of their party, they are giving them.
All right. Many thanks again for that. I have a caller who I've been holding on for a while. Apologies on that. Sonny from Edo State, many thanks for calling. What's your contribution on the topic at hand? Please go straight to the point, please. I don't seem to hear that. Yeah, can you hear me?
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much for that. To you. My suggestion is that when everyone uses this election, please, all the politicians and women who get in the politicians during this time, they should withdraw them and put them outside and protect the electorate, madam. It's very important. Our security men are after with the individual politicians here and there. When we say we don't have enough security to manage the stations and everything. We have, but many are with politicians. Cities will have to the market. So
all right, many thanks, Sonny, for your contribution. I don't know if you got that, Mr. Daniel, regarding...
I didn't hear him. I'm relying on you to tell me what he said so I can react to it.
All right, so what he was saying is that he wants the government to, as in the police force, to redeploy the police to other different states than the states that they're already familiar with. But moving on from that, because I know you've touched on that, I really want to manage time, because according to the global news on Al Jazeera this morning, and I like the fact that you've spoken about that international community on ground observing all that is going on at the moment. But The Al Jazeera this morning says that Peter Obi is the newfound momentum that is disrupting businesses as usual, you know, in terms of politics for parties like yours and, of course, the APC. What do you think the International Watch News is saying that is different from your perspective in terms of our leadership for Nigeria, and of course with all that is going on right now, that quite a number of the youth today are tilted towards Peter Obi, and he has become the sensational, so to speak, presidential candidate that people are willing to, you know, cast their votes for. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a narrative thing, and let me state that narrative that Labour Party and Peter Obi, they are peddling this morning. I happened to meet with one of their chieftain, in fact, the leading chieftain in Labour, and we were exchanging. We just happened accidentally to meet at a breakfast. And I told them, and this is the truth, how can you say that Peter Obi has the youth moving for him when Peter Obi's youth supporting him are less than 35% of the total youth in Nigeria who also are exercising their right to support other candidates? If you go to all the rallies, both in PDP and in APC, the people who turn up for the rally, are they old people? They are young people. So you are now using the part of the country where in terms of literacy and access to social media is more pronounced. You are now using the baseline of measurement. And for that, you assume that apart from that side of the country, there are no youth anywhere. And what gives them the audacity to think that those other youth from the other parts of the country who also agree with other candidates are not youth or do not qualify as youth? So Peter Obi does not even carry 1/4 of the youth movement in Nigeria. And because Peter Obi does not even represent the youth in the first place, where was he when they were doing Sars? He has been in the country, he has been doing politics for 20 years. You cannot find any record in Nigeria today of Peter Obi's involvement, participation, support, or any activity with the youth in Nigeria. What he is doing is the case of an opportunistic person. He wanted to run. He found a team of people that are already getting aggrieved with status quo. They expressed that at NSAS. They were thinking about forming for themselves a political party, and then in the midst of that cacophony, he then emerged, and people say he should run under that platform, and he's running with it. These people don't even believe in the ideology that Peter Obi holds, because Peter Obi is just like any other politician in Nigeria. He has had the same allegation of corruption like every other politician. He has had the allegation of disunity. He was the first in Nigeria to extradite Nigerians from his state to other parts of the country. He's the first in Nigeria who violated human rights of people under the guise of law enforcement. He divided the state across religious lines and faith-based lines. So the notion that he has a youth. Okay, go ahead.
I have a caller that I've been holding on for a while, and his name is Peter from Edo State. My Edo people are really after you today, sir. So, yeah, Peter, what's your contribution on the topic at hand? Yeah, go ahead. Can you hear me, Peter? All right, apologies, I had to keep you waiting for too long. Sir, you know, with all that you've shared thus far, you know, I wish I can actually give my own opinion, but as an anchor, you don't have an opinion. But some say that the APC government, if voted back into power, would relaunch the old Naira notes, you know, into circulation. Firstly, do you even believe in this Naira redesign policy is the question I want to ask you first. And also, if PDP were to come to power, would it be sustained to checkmate the financial challenges? That's the word I would like to challenges in this country. What's your take on this?
So PDP and our candidate, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, has laid out his manifesto, the clear economic plan that he has for the country. I think he made it clear that he's not going to sustain the policy of multi-exchange rates because that's what is breeding correction and bringing some of the problem. So his position, his fiscal and monetary policy, I think is clear to all Nigerians. The second point is, if you have proper policies in place, you won't need to be bringing these emergency policies to deal with non-monetary matters, because this policy was introduced to fight vote buying. Ordinarily, if law enforcement are actually working and structures are in place, you don't need monetary policy, because there will be law enforcement that will punish vote buying, because vote buying and vote selling happens among human beings. It's not algorithm, it's human beings. But that is typical of APC. Bad policies, bad policies, bad policies. PDP comes in, Atiku promised to raise a 10 billion carrying capital to boost into the economy and revive the expectation of the young people through the small and medium-scale enterprise. How many of our young people today have access to money? That's why you have the Japa syndrome. Last year, beginning of last year, around this time, they came from United Arab Emirates and took away close to 150 medical doctors. Because even though they are working in Nigeria, the working condition is hostile. On an average, we spend over 1 billion in medical tourism abroad.
Again, I will definitely come back to you so you can have your full submission on this topic at hand. But I have Victor from Akwa Ibom State. Victor, what's your contribution on the topic? Please go straight to the point.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
No, good afternoon.
Excellent afternoon. I can hear you. Please go ahead. Make your point count.
I just want to respond to Kike, what Kike is saying. I think I followed him last 2 days ago, responding to Kayamo, what the Kayamo was saying. But I've been listening to him. I was expecting for him to address the issue on ground pertaining to Naira swap, how people are suffering based on how they cannot withdraw their money. And I look as if what is after is all about his party. His party. He's not looking at the people's interest. I know that PDP is a party that everybody loves to vote for because they have a basic background on ground. What I mean, what they have been performing. But what I was expecting from him for him to address the issue pertaining to support the masses, but listening to him is all about the party.
So many thanks, Victor. If you've been following us, you would have noticed or you would have heard that we touched on the Naira swap and all of that. But quickly, in 1 minute, sir, can you please wrap up your thoughts on what you were discussing earlier? In a minute.
Okay, so let me react to the gentleman there. You've already answered him. We've discussed many issues, but even with respect to the policy of Naira swap, it's because probably he didn't hear. I said that the policy has inflicted injury on Nigeria because the policy was a strategy by APC to introduce it and punish Nigerians so that in the midst of that pain, a drop of water will mean a lot. So, for example, if you are thirsty but you have options, you might say, I want cold water. Somebody say, I want cold drinks. And then if they bring you water but it's not cold, you will say, no, I don't want it. But when you go through a tempestuous situation, a kind of situation that is so terrible that you're gasping between life and death, and they give you a drop of water, even if it is from Kotomi, what they say Kotomi from the gutter, you will want to drink first to survive. That's what they introduced because they know that if Nigerians are going to vote for them, they have failed Nigerians 8 years. But if they further push Nigerians down the line that they need to survive with this policy issue, can you imagine for the life of me, it is your own money in the bank you can access. The one you have at home, they say if you don't turn it on time, it will be useless. Who are the people that are keeping? Have you not had a governor from that party who said a governor friend of his got 500 million of the new money? That governor up till now has not clarified. There is no policy of CBN right now that has given any governor in Nigeria 500 million. How did they get it? If the money is released to the bank, they connive with the governors and smoke the money out. So you don't see the money in all the payment platforms. It got to a point where now you use money to buy money. What kind of policy? But this is typical of APC. And the point we're saying is, it is not today that they've been doing this. We have seen the movie before. So what you need to do, my brother that asked the question, gather up yourself and your family, make up your mind, vote out APC, vote Atiku Abubakar. I guarantee you our own policy will be such that you will not only be struggling to collect your money from the bank. You are going to grow your money through any of these investment opportunities. If you're an artisan, you will have access to loan from the bank. What we will do is we will guarantee, we'll guarantee for you. Okay.
All right. Many thanks for all your submission thus far. It's been an interesting time with you on Real Talk with Kike platform today. But before I let you go, there's the last segment of the show that I call Trending Story. These are stories that binds us, that affect us as Nigerians. And the first trending story is not too far-fetched from one of your submission right now regarding Naira crisis, with Oji Uzo Kalu's family is being stabbed in Naira crisis at the moment. But before I come to you, let me quickly give my submission. This is where I have an opinion at the moment to express. First off, funny things happen in our country, and like I tell people now that the rich also cry. I'm not even after the story of his family having cash to cook or being able to access funds for cooking for the whole populace in his environment, you know. But my contention is the fact that there are some cultures that I feel that we have which are absolutely uncalled for. What do I mean by that? You know, the culture is being dependent on these politicians. At first, you know, I can't really blame the people because the so-called politicians have made sure poverty is being used to keep the masses at their own mercy. And with some of the submission of my guest right now, where he's talking about how politicians are sometimes, they are the ones that created the problem and they want to be the ones to kind of prefer solution to kind of, you know, manipulate you. That maybe that's the word for lack of a better word right now. But however, why should a sitting politician be cooking food for over 250 people was what came to mind when I read that he cannot even cook for his family right now. I see it as our politician playing Robin Hood, if you ask me. If the politicians are dependent on their salary alone, there will be no room to have a party of food every day for over 250 people was also what came to mind. They are only feeding the masses with, you know, fish and helping them to become helping them to become fishermen, which I feel that is much better than trying to trying to feed them fish. So such monies can be plunged into, you know, empowerment schemes, infrastructure development, or even agriculture investment to enable food go round for all. And I like the fact that earlier our guest was also talking about the fact that the money that is being given to some states, you know, they would have used it into putting it into agriculture and all of that. I just pray that our people are delivered one day and actually there will be a transformation in this country, Nigeria, because there are a lot of potentials and we are people who actually apply ourselves. Quickly, what's your take on this, sir, before I touch on the second trending story? What's your take, sir?
You know, I don't know, maybe there is a problem with the sound production or sound transmission. It was echoing that I wasn't hearing specifically what you were saying. So I was bending my head, thinking that probably there will be clarity, but I honestly have not heard because of the echo.
Okay. But what's your take on the trending story of Uzo Kalu talking about him not being able to feed his family because of the cash crisis? What's your solution on this?
I saw the picture on the screen, say that his family can't cook. I wanted to laugh in Chinese, but even laughing in Chinese can be offensive to the sensibility of Nigerians. Because if he can't cook, then that means he should have been dead by now. Because if you can't eat, you will die. But secondly, if he can't cook, that means people in his state and senatorial district all would have been dead and buried by now. This is the level to which politicians have turned the sensibility of Nigerians into a joke, honestly. We should by now be thinking about those who are in the villages, in local government, these Nigerians who are struggling every day to survive, and think about how we can bring solutions to them rather than to play politics with the suffering of Nigerians.
All right, many thanks
Even
for
me,
that.
I am not worthy, permit me to say this, I am probably not worthy to be his gate man. But I can't say I can't eat. Because I go to the shopping mall, I give card, I buy the items, then give them ATM card, or I do transfer. I carry the thing. When I come home, I cook. And put my soul and spirit till Saturday when APC will be voted up to power and we can have Nigeria
All
again.
right, many thanks again. So the second trending story that caught our attention, I hope you can hear me loud and clear now, is the court that stops Oluomo from being INEC logistics partner. And can you hear me now? Are you there?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right,
I can hear you say court bars Oluomo from becoming INEC consultant.
Yes, so in my head, I think for me, my submission on this is the fact that I feel, again, funny things happen in our country thanks to the rule of law and the judiciary who are working to ensure that elections and electoral practices are being done according to the guidelines. However, why would INEC in the first place allow such an idea, let alone communicate it to the public? It's absolute misplacement of electoral obligation, if you ask me. Even the little child of 5 years old in the Nigeria knows NURTW is owned and controlled by APC. At least my children know. So I have also worked for, I've also, seeing how APC are controlling all of this narrative and all of it. I'm just using this platform, you know, because we keep it real on this platform, and I try as much as possible to find a balanced opinion. I'm using this platform to urge INEC, you know, to stay away from any action, policy, decision that may lead to controversy of or people have doubts or bias in their capacity as a credible electoral agency. And I just feel that let them use a neutral agency for Nigerians, and I don't think that Nigerians will actually mind. I don't think Nigerians will actually raise an eyeball if they are using a good agency. But quickly, what's your take on this before we wrap up on the show?
Yeah, I was even very, very surprised to hear that INEC had in the past even considered giving the contract. But you know that the INEC commissioner in Lagos was the same person that spearheaded elections in, I think, Ekiti and Osun. And both of these elections were declared as controversial, one of which was inconclusive. And the person has an allegiance to APC. Will you be surprised when you see that? That is number one. That's when I talk to you about redeployment of personnel when election is coming close. Because when somebody stays in a place for long, you don't know what they agree on. But above all, let me tell you in closing, there are four sets of people under trial in this election. The president who wants to leave a legacy, the INEC who said they brought a game changer, the law enforcement who are to preserve and see that this thing works, and the Nigerian people. These four sets of people, they are on trial in this. Whatever comes out of this election is determined by whether these four sets of people contribute to the growth of democracy.
All right, with that, we've come to the end of another episode of Real Talk with Kike. And indeed, had an awesome show today, courtesy our resourceful guest, Mr. Daniel Bwala, the PDP spokesman for Atiku and, of course, Okowa campaign organization. Many thanks for all your submission thus far. And I actually wish you the very best as we forge ahead on Saturday to know.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, my name remains Kike Atanda-Owo. I remain kind to one another. I'll try to share the little money you have with you. Bye now.